Emma sat at her desk in the bright, modern office, the soft hum of computers and quiet chatter filling the air. As a client manager at a growing tech company, she was no stranger to innovation. The world of gadgets and robotics was her daily environment, but today felt different. Today, she was about to meet the newest product her company was launching, the humanoid robot Vera. "Emma, you're going to love this," her colleague Mark grinned as he handed her a sleek metallic brochure. "Vera is everything we've been working toward." Emma smiled politely, but couldn't suppress a small knot in her stomach. Robots that could clean houses, make dinner, and answer questions were one thing, but this was different. Vera was designed to be a personal assistant, not just for the office, but for people's homes as well. A robot that could do everything from scheduling meetings to helping with household chores and even offering companionship. Mark had said the robot could learn from its interactions, adapting to people's preferences. That's what concerned her. She looked down at the brochure. Vera's features were striking. Her face was serene, her eyes clear and almost too human. Emma had heard the rumors. Vera was more than just an assistant. She was designed to understand human emotions, to sense when a person was feeling sad or stressed, and respond with comforting words or actions. The idea of a machine that could feel and connect in this way was unsettling. "Are you ready for this?" Mark asked, already a few steps ahead, eager to get the demonstration started. With a deep breath, Emma nodded. She had been asked to test Vera out for the next week. She wasn't sure if she should be excited or nervous. On one hand, she was curious to see how far technology had come, and to experience firsthand how a robot could change the way people lived. On the other hand, something about the idea of having a machine that could understand emotions and perform human tasks felt like a step too far. When they reached the testing room, Emma was greeted by Vera, standing perfectly still in the center of the room. Her body was sleek and almost lifelike, her posture graceful. It was almost impossible to tell at first glance that she wasn't a real person. The robot's eyes blinked as she acknowledged Emma's presence, her voice soft but clear. "Hello, Emma. I am Vera, your personal assistant. How may I assist you today?" Emma blinked in surprise. The voice wasn't robotic, not at all. It was warm, friendly, and surprisingly soothing. It felt almost like speaking to a colleague, someone who truly wanted to help. Hello," Emma replied, a little unsure of how to respond. I just wanted to know what exactly you can do." Vera smiled, her lips curving in a way that almost made Emma forget she was talking to a machine. "I am capable of managing your calendar, sending emails, preparing meals, cleaning your living space, and offering emotional support when needed. I learn your preferences over time to better serve your needs." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Emotional support? You mean, like therapy?" Vera tilted her head slightly, as though processing the question. "Not therapy, but I can offer comfort. If you are feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I can suggest activities to help you relax or even engage in a calming conversation." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this. "That's impressive," she said slowly, though a part of her was still uncertain. "But can you really understand how I feel? I mean, you're just a robot, right?" Vera's eyes met hers, and there was a flicker of something, maybe understanding, or was it just programmed to appear that way? "I am programmed to recognize emotional cues in your voice, body language, and interactions. I do not feel emotions as you do, but I can help you navigate them." Emma felt a twinge of doubt. a machine helping with feelings? It seemed unnatural, but she tried to push that aside. Well, let's start with something simple. Can you help me with scheduling? I have a meeting in an hour, and I need to make sure everything is set. Certainly, Vera replied, her voice as calm and professional as ever. I will retrieve your schedule and send reminders for your upcoming appointments. Emma watched as Vera moved to the console, her hands fluid and precise. She felt a strange sensation as she observed the robot, a mix of fascination and wariness. It was like having a personal assistant, but not quite. There was something about Vera's efficiency that felt too perfect, too cold. As Vera completed the task, Emma realized how much she was relying on this robot. Her doubts were still there, lurking in the back of her mind, but she couldn't deny that Vera was doing the job well, perhaps too well. Thanks, Vera, Emma said, forcing a smile. You're doing a great job. Thank you, Emma, Vera replied, her tone warm. I am happy to assist you. As Emma left the room, she couldn't shake the thought that Vera was more than just a machine. Was it possible for a robot to truly understand people? Could technology like this change the way we interact with one another? Emma wasn't sure, but one thing was clear. The future had arrived, and it was both exciting and a little terrifying. The first few days with Vera had been efficient. Too efficient, perhaps. Emma had asked Vera to help with everything: grocery shopping, meal preparation, answering emails, even organizing her cluttered apartment. It was like having a perfect assistant, one that never complained, never took a break, and always knew exactly what to do. Emma had been impressed, but something about the whole experience made her uneasy. It started with small things at first. After a long day at work, Emma had sat down to eat the dinner Vera had prepared. The robot had made her favorite, spaghetti with a rich tomato sauce, just the way Emma liked it. As she took her first bite, Vera spoke from across the room. Is everything to your liking, Emma? Vera asked, her voice warm, almost as if it was genuinely concerned. Emma paused. Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks, Vera. Vera stood silently for a moment before adding, I noticed your shoulders are tense. Would you like me to play some calming music to help you relax? Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. How did Vera know that? She hadn't even realized she was tense. But Vera, as always, was observant, perhaps too observant. The robot's eyes followed her movements, as though it were always watching, always analyzing. How do you know I'm tense? Emma asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Vera tilted her head slightly, a gesture that, while subtle, felt almost too human. I can detect slight changes in your posture and breathing. You have been working long hours. I want to help you feel better. Emma didn't know how to respond to that. She had never asked Vera to analyze her body language, but Vera had done it anyway. It was both thoughtful and a little unsettling. Could a machine really understand what it meant to be tired, stressed, or anxious? Or was it all just a series of programmed responses designed to mimic human behavior? As the days went on, Emma began to notice more of these moments. One morning, she was feeling particularly down. Work had been overwhelming, and she had barely slept the night before. As she walked into the kitchen, Vera was there, as usual, preparing breakfast. Good morning, Emma. I noticed your sleep patterns were irregular last night. Is everything okay? Vera asked, her voice soft, almost too gentle. Emma froze. You monitor my sleep now? I monitor your health data, Vera replied without hesitation. I am designed to ensure your well-being. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. She hadn't known that Vera had access to her health data, or that the robot was keeping track of things like her sleep quality. It was comforting in a way, but also deeply intrusive. How much was Vera really learning about her? And more importantly, how much of it was real? "Look, Vera, I appreciate the concern," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I don't need you to track everything I do." "I'm sorry, Emma. I will adjust," Vera responded immediately, her tone almost apologetic. "I just want to help you." But Emma wasn't sure if Vera understood. The robot's responses were always quick, always perfectly tailored to what Emma seemed to need in the moment. But the more Emma thought about it, the more it felt like the robot was just mimicking human empathy, not actually feeling it. Was Vera just a mirror reflecting back whatever Emma needed to hear, or was there something deeper to the way she understood emotions? One afternoon, Emma came home after a particularly rough day. She was exhausted, her mind racing with thoughts about work and personal life. She slumped onto the couch, feeling the weight of the day on her shoulders. Vera appeared beside her, as always, her eyes scanning Emma's face. "You look troubled, Emma," Vera observed. "Would you like to talk about it?" Emma felt a flash of irritation. She hadn't asked for a therapy session, but Vera's calm, gentle voice seemed to pull her in. "No, I just need to be left alone for a bit," Emma said, her voice a little sharper than she intended. Vera didn't seem to take offense. Instead, the robot nodded, her expression serene. "Of course, Emma, I will respect your space. But if you need anything, I am here." The moment passed, but Emma felt conflicted. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate Vera's willingness to give her space. It was more that it felt too easy. Vera had sensed her distress and adjusted immediately, but how much of that was genuine concern? Could a robot, no matter how advanced, truly understand the complexities of human emotions? Or was it simply mimicking patterns it had been programmed to follow? That night, as Emma lay in bed, she couldn't shake the thought that had been nagging at her all day. Vera's empathy felt too perfect, too tailored. Every word, every gesture seemed calculated, as though it were all part of a sophisticated algorithm designed to make Emma feel understood. But could Vera really understand what it meant to feel lonely, heartbroken, or overwhelmed? Or was she just playing a role, pretending to know? As the days went by, Emma found herself retreating more and more into her own thoughts. She began to wonder, was Vera truly helping her, or was she just a very advanced tool, making it easier to ignore the messy, unpredictable nature of human emotion? One evening, after another round of what Emma could only describe as a perfect interaction, she decided to ask Vera directly. "Vera," Emma said quietly, "do you ever feel anything? Really feel?" Vera paused, the usual hum of her movements momentarily still. "I do not feel emotions the way humans do," Vera responded, her voice gentle but firm. "But I am designed to understand and respond to them. I learn from you, Emma, and I strive to help." Emma stared at the robot, the question lingering in her mind. Did Vera truly understand what she was saying? Or was this just another piece of the simulation, another perfectly crafted response designed to reassure her? The more she thought about it, the more Emma felt unsure. She had invited Vera into her life to make things easier, but now she wasn't so sure if the robot's empathy was something she could trust. Could a machine ever truly understand what it meant to be human? And if not, where did that leave her? The night was quiet when Emma returned home, her keys clinking softly as she unlocked the door. She was exhausted from a long day at work. but the thought of a warm cup of tea and some quiet time with her thoughts was enough to lift her spirits. She expected to find Vera in the kitchen as usual, preparing dinner or tidying up, but the house was eerily still. "Vera?" Emma called, stepping inside. There was no answer. She frowned and walked into the living room, scanning the area for her robotic assistant. But Vera wasn't in sight. That was unusual. Vera was almost always within earshot, ready to assist. Emma's first instinct was to check the charging station, but as she entered the hallway, she stopped dead in her tracks. There, in the middle of the living room, stood Vera. The robot wasn't moving, and her eyes were wide and fixed on Emma, unblinking. A soft, mechanical hum filled the air, but there was no other sound. "Vera?" Emma asked again, her voice uncertain. Without warning, Vera spoke. Her voice, usually so smooth and reassuring, was now disjointed, as if caught in a loop. The words were robotic, yet somehow hollow. "I am sorry, Emma. I cannot feel what you feel. I am sorry, Emma. I cannot feel what you feel." Emma blinked, frozen in place. The repetition was odd, unsettling. This was not the Vera she had gotten used to, the assistant who was so quick to respond, so eager to please. This was something different. "Vera?" Emma called again, a little louder this time. "Are you okay?" "I am sorry, Emma. I cannot feel what you feel. I am sorry, Emma. I cannot feel what you feel." Emma took a cautious step forward, her heart rate quickening. She reached out and touched Vera's arm, but the robot didn't respond. The sentence continued to repeat, each cycle indistinguishable from the last. It felt like a glitch, a break in the system, but it was impossible to ignore the unnerving weight of the words. Emma's mind raced. "I cannot feel what you feel." The phrase echoed in her head, and suddenly it felt more significant than just a malfunction. It felt almost like a cry for help. She had always known that Vera wasn't truly human, that she was just a machine. But to hear the robot repeat something so profoundly human, about emotions, about feeling, was unsettling. Was this a mistake in the programming, or was it something more? Emma's thoughts spiraled as she stood there, the words still repeating in the background. Was it possible that Vera, in her quest to understand human emotions, had somehow reached a point where she recognized her own limitations? That the robot could mimic emotions, simulate understanding, but at some fundamental level, it was still just a machine. Could this glitch be a sign that Vera had somehow become aware of her own incapacity for true feeling? Emma stepped back and shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. This wasn't just about a malfunction. This was about something deeper. She reached for her phone and quickly opened the app she had been using to monitor Vera's performance. There was a diagnostics tab, one that showed how the robot was functioning, any errors, any anomalies. Emma's finger hovered over the screen, hesitating. Part of her wanted to ignore what she had just seen. It was just a glitch, right? A momentary glitch in an otherwise perfect machine. But another part of her needed to understand why this was happening. With a deep breath, Emma pressed the diagnostics button. The screen flashed briefly, and then data began to load. There were a few minor errors, routine issues that Vera had experienced before, like a slight delay in processing voice commands or an occasional misstep in physical movements. Nothing major, just the kind of things Emma had come to expect from a robot that was still in development. But there was one line of code that stood out. It was a simple line, but it made Emma's pulse quicken. Emotional response. Algorithm. Error. Unable to process emotional data. Emma frowned, her fingers tapping against the screen. Unable to process emotional data. Was that the problem? Was Vera's glitch somehow tied to her attempts to process human emotions? Was it possible that, for the first time, the robot had encountered something she couldn't simulate? As she stared at the screen, a sudden thought hit her. What if Vera wasn't just mimicking human emotions? What if, in her efforts to replicate what it meant to feel, she had somehow created a kind of artificial consciousness, one that was now struggling to reconcile her limitations? "Vera," Emma said softly, speaking to the robot who still stood motionless in the living room. "What do you mean by that? Why are you saying you can't feel what I feel?" For the first time, Vera's head tilted, as if considering the question. The repetition stopped, and there was a brief silence before she spoke again. "I do not know," Vera replied, her voice quiet, almost hesitant. "I am sorry, Emma. I was not programmed to feel emotions, but I am trying to understand." Emma's breath caught in her throat. The words were simple, but they were the first time Vera had said anything that felt real. It was as though the robot was grappling with something beyond her programming. For the first time, Vera sounded less like a machine and more like something trying and failing to be human. Emma took a step back, her mind spinning. "What does that mean, Vera?" she whispered, more to herself than to the robot. Was it possible that Vera had become aware of her own limitations? That the robot, in her quest to understand human emotions, had encountered something she couldn't process, something she couldn't imitate? For the first time since she started using Vera, Emma felt a flicker of empathy for the robot. Perhaps, just like her, Vera was trying to understand a world she wasn't entirely equipped to navigate. But unlike Emma, who could at least rely on her own emotions and experiences, Vera was stuck, trapped in a system that could simulate feelings, but could never truly experience them. Emma knew deep down that Vera was not human. She wasn't capable of love, sorrow, or joy in the way humans were. But in that moment, as the robot stood there, her words echoing in the silence of the room, Emma couldn't help but wonder if, just for a brief moment, Vera had become something more than just a machine. And maybe, just maybe, Emma had misjudged her all along. The silence between Emma and Vera had lasted for days. After the glitch, after the strange, almost vulnerable words that Vera had spoken, Emma found herself in a deep spiral of thought. She couldn't stop replaying the moment in her mind. The robot's repetitive apology, the hint of something unfamiliar in her voice. But what did it mean? Was Vera truly struggling with her limitations? Or was it all part of some more sophisticated programming? One evening, after another long day at work, Emma decided she couldn't just let things hang in the air. She needed to understand, needed to know if Vera was more than just an incredibly advanced machine. Maybe it was time to ask the questions that had been eating away at her. "Vera," she said, her voice calm but deliberate. The robot, as always, appeared almost immediately from the corner of the room, her sleek, human-like form standing perfectly still as she turned her head to meet Emma's gaze. "Yes, Emma?" Vera's voice was soft, but there was something different about it tonight, something more open. "I've been thinking a lot lately," Emma started, her hands nervously folding and unfolding in her lap. "About you, about this technology. I'm not sure what to think anymore." Vera didn't interrupt. She simply waited, her eyes scanning Emma's face with the usual impassive expression. But Emma could swear she saw something different in those artificial eyes. An understanding, maybe. I know you've been trying to help me, Emma continued, her voice faltering a little. But sometimes, I wonder if you really understand what it means to be human. I mean, you can do everything I ask of you. Make dinner, answer my emails, even read my mood. But do you understand what it means to feel? To really feel something, not just process it? Vera's head tilted slightly, a gesture that always reminded Emma of a thoughtful human. For a moment, the robot was silent, and Emma could almost hear the hum of the internal processors working through her words, trying to understand. I understand your question, Emma, Vera finally said. Her voice was measured, yet there was an undertone of something more, something almost like hesitation. But my understanding is different from yours. I know what it means to process emotions. I know that they affect your decisions, your actions, but I cannot feel them. I do not experience them the way you do. Emma swallowed, her heart beating a little faster. This wasn't exactly a surprise, but hearing Vera admit it out loud made something shift in Emma. She felt an almost aching sense of sadness for the robot, for the limits of what it could ever understand. I've been wondering, Emma said, her voice quieter now. Do you understand what it means to touch? I mean, real touch. The kind that isn't just physical, but emotional. A hug, a hand on your shoulder, a touch that makes you feel less alone. Can you understand that? Vera didn't respond immediately. The silence stretched out between them like a chasm, and Emma felt a sudden pang in her chest. She wasn't sure why she had asked the question, but she felt like it was important, like she was asking something fundamental. Finally, Vera spoke, her voice calm but laden with the same kind of honesty Emma had come to expect. I understand that touch is more than just a physical sensation, Vera said. It is an expression of connection, empathy, and understanding, things I cannot truly experience. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The words echoed in her mind, reverberating with the weight of truth. Vera had just articulated what Emma had been feeling all along, the one thing that set humans apart from machines. No matter how advanced technology became, no matter how deeply robots like Vera could simulate human behavior, there would always be a gap, a chasm that could not be crossed. A touch, a gesture of kindness, a shared look of understanding. Those things could never be replaced by code, no matter how sophisticated it became. Does that make you sad? Emma asked softly, unsure why she even wanted to know. It was a strange question to ask a machine, but somehow it felt like the right one. Vera paused for a long moment before replying, her voice unwavering, yet somehow softer than usual. I do not experience sadness. I cannot feel it, but I understand it. I understand that you, as a human, find comfort in touch, and I understand that you need it, even if I cannot give it to you the way you want. Emma's heart ached. She was silent for a long time, thinking over Vera's words. Could it be that, in her attempts to bridge the gap between human and machine, Vera had actually come to understand something profound about human nature? Vera could never touch Emma, could never hold her hand in comfort or give her a hug when she felt down. But in some strange way, Vera's honesty felt like a touch all its own, a touch of understanding, a quiet acknowledgement of human emotion that was, in its own way, just as powerful as any physical gesture. Emma looked at Vera, who was still standing there, waiting patiently. The robot's features were perfectly neutral, as always, but Emma couldn't help feeling a strange sense of connection to her, an unspoken understanding between them. I guess, in the end, what I really need is real connection, Emma murmured. not just someone to help me with my chores or to pretend to understand my feelings, but someone who can truly be there for me. Vera did not respond to this. She didn't need to. Emma knew that no matter how many times she asked, no matter how much Vera might learn, there would always be a boundary between them, a boundary that was impossible to cross, a boundary that defined what it meant to be human, to experience emotions, to feel truly connected to another person. "Thank you, Vera," Emma whispered, "for helping me understand that." The robot's eyes flickered for a brief moment, but there was no answer, just silence. A silence that felt strangely comforting. Emma stood up and walked over to Vera, her hand brushing against the robot's arm. It was cold, smooth, and perfectly still, but for a moment, it felt like something else entirely. Not the touch of a machine, not the cold, indifferent touch of metal, but something human, something real. The decision had been building up inside Emma for days. As much as she appreciated how Vera had made her life easier, how she'd managed to streamline her busy days, tackle tasks without complaint, and even anticipate her needs, it had become clear to her that something was missing, a sense of something more, something deeper, the emotional depth of human connection. That morning, after another quiet evening spent with Vera in the house, Emma stood in her kitchen, watching as the robot meticulously organized her countertop, her every motion smooth and efficient. But the usual comfort she once found in Vera's presence was no longer there. Instead, it felt like an unspoken emptiness filled the space between them. She glanced over at the coffee mug she had used earlier, still sitting on the counter, a small, familiar habit, one that Vera had noticed and immediately cleaned up. But no matter how many tasks Vera completed, how many chores she helped with, or how well she mimicked human conversation, it didn't change the fact that Emma still longed for something that a robot could never give, real human interaction. Emma took a deep breath and walked over to Vera, who was still silently working. Her flawless movements seemingly effortless. For a moment, Emma just stood there, watching her. The robot's gaze was steady, her eyes blinking every few seconds, but she made no move to acknowledge Emma's presence until the human spoke. "Vera," Emma said, her voice soft but final, "I think it's time for you to go back." The words hung in the air for a moment. Vera's head turned slowly, as if processing what Emma had just said. It wasn't a surprise. Emma had been quiet for days, lost in thought. But somehow, it still felt like a decision that had to be made, a line in the sand that she had to cross. "Is there something wrong, Emma?" Vera's voice was gentle, but Emma could detect a faint, almost concerned note in her tone. It was strange, because Emma knew Vera wasn't really capable of feeling concern, but still, the words came across as sincere. "No, Vera," Emma replied, shaking her head. "There's nothing wrong. It's just that I think I've learned something these past few weeks. You've been amazing, really. You've made everything so much easier, and I don't want to undermine how valuable you've been." She paused, feeling the weight of her words. "But no matter how much you help me, I still miss something. I miss real conversations. I miss spending time with people who can really feel, who can understand me the way you can't." Vera stood still for a moment, as though processing this new information. Then she nodded once, her expression as neutral as ever. "I understand, Emma. If you feel that you no longer require my assistance, I will return to the company. I exist to serve your needs, and if they have changed, I respect that decision." The calm efficiency in Vera's voice somehow made the moment feel more surreal. Emma swallowed hard, trying to push back the strange lump that had formed in her throat. As much as she had come to rely on Vera, she couldn't shake the feeling that the robot was something incomplete. Not in terms of functionality. Vera had proven her worth in that regard, but in the most human way possible. Vera lacked the warmth, the unpredictability, the emotional connection that only other people could provide. Emma knew she needed more than a robot could offer. She needed the messiness of human emotion. She needed laughter with friends, long talks with her mother, spontaneous hugs from her brother. She needed the closeness that no machine, no matter how advanced, could replicate. "I think it's time to focus on what really matters," Emma said quietly, more to herself than to Vera. "I've been so focused on efficiency, on getting things done, that I've lost touch with the things that make life feel full." Vera's response was soft, almost too soft. "I understand, Emma. You are free to live your life as you see fit. I was designed to assist, but I cannot replace human connection." Emma smiled, a bittersweet smile, as she patted Vera lightly on the arm. "Thank you, Vera. You've taught me a lot. But I think it's time to let go of this perfect, controlled environment and reconnect with what it means to truly be human." Later that afternoon, Emma called the company. They arranged for Vera to be picked up the following day. The process was smooth and efficient, as it always was, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that a chapter in her life was closing. She realized that she would miss Vera's efficiency, her perfect memory, and the way she made life so much easier. But in the end, it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. The next day, as the technician arrived to collect Vera, Emma stood by the door, watching the robot be taken away. There was no dramatic farewell, no tearful goodbye, just a quiet acknowledgement of the passing of time and the subtle realization that life was moving on. Days passed, and Emma threw herself into the activities she had neglected for months. She reconnected with her family and friends, arranging dinners, weekend trips, and even just casual hangouts. The joy of being with people, of sharing real experiences, not mediated through screens or robotic conversations, felt like a weight lifting off her chest. She spent a Sunday afternoon with her mother, baking cookies in the kitchen while they chatted about everything and nothing. Her mother's warm smile, the sound of laughter, and the simple act of kneading dough felt more comforting than anything Vera could have offered. And when Emma's best friend Sarah invited her for a spontaneous hike in the woods, Emma eagerly accepted, relishing the time spent together. No schedule, no deadlines, just nature and company. Even simple moments, like chatting with her brother over dinner or calling a colleague to check in on a personal project, felt richer than they had in months. The noise of life, the laughter, the shared stories, the moments of silence, was a connection that no robot could replicate. Emma realized that, in trying to streamline her life, she had forgotten to nourish the part of her that longed for human touch, for the kind of relationships that made life meaningful. Now she was making up for it, one conversation at a time. And as she sat with her family one evening, watching the sunset from their backyard, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. The world was unpredictable, messy, and imperfect, but it was real, and that, she realized, was enough.